I'm tired. Let me show you why. I've spent way too much time designing this. It looks incredible, and today I'm gonna show you how to make your Switch look just like this one. What's up, everybody? We're gonna be going through how to put on the Nintendo Fishskyn today. We spent a lot of time perfecting this template and the fitment to make it as easy as possible to put on. It's one of our easiest skins to put on. There's a lot of pieces, so we're gonna go right into it. We're gonna start with the back of the Switch on the kickstand. So we peel it off, and I like to align with the longer edge first to make sure it's nice and straight. And so what we do is we align this along this edge, making sure your top edges and your corners are all looking good. And if for some reason you put it on crooked, you can always peel it up and reapply it. The material is really easy going like that. So once you have it on, smooth it out with your thumbs, make sure it fits well, double check it. That looks good. So next we're gonna go on to the game card slot. And this just covers that little slot the games slide into. So again, just align the longer edge, make sure you get it nice and straight, and then smooth it out with your thumb, and make sure it's nice and stick and no edges sitting up. Looks good. This next part, I like to use the dock as a stand for the Switch. So I'll put it in here to help me line up the pieces. And we're gonna start on the back of the Switch. So for this part, I like to take the back of it, and you can see where the air vent holes are and the notch for the dock. And I like to tear the backing paper behind the skin, just like an inch or two, just exposing those pieces, the stickiness on those pieces. And what this allows us to do is work with a smaller amount of adhesive. So if you get it wrong, you can always lift it and redo it. It's much easier. So we'll line the top edge here, looking at the screw holes, the air vents, and that same notch that we use for the dock. So you can see it's nice and smooth, it's nice and even. I like to double check it one more time, make sure everything's lining up before I go and smooth it down with my thumb. Once it checks out, I just go, I run my thumb along this top edge, run it nice and smooth, get all the air bubbles out. And if you get any lifting edges or wrinkles, you can peel it up and redo it, re-push that down with your thumb. If you have to, you can use a hairdryer to smooth it out. That'll help warm up the material, get rid of any creases or air bubbles. You shouldn't have to use a hairdryer, but if you find an area that's stubborn, it will help. So from here what we do is, we'll lift the backing paper away from the adhesive skin that we're applying and just lay it down like this. And I just like to walk this down with my thumb, smoothing it out as I go, making sure there's no wrinkles or air bubbles. So you can see that looks nice and good. And then for the top, I just smooth it out with my thumb, make sure it all lines up. That looks great. So we're gonna do the same thing for the screen. Again, I use the dock just to help hold it up. It makes it easier. And we're gonna be paying attention to the power button, the volume buttons, the air vent, and the headphone jack. Same process as before. We're gonna rip the paper away just an inch. It doesn't need to be a lot to allow us to align that edge. So with that little bit exposed, what we do is we're gonna line up the power button, the volume button, the headphone jack, and the air vent, and just make sure it all lines up nice and straight. Again, if it doesn't, you can lift it and redo it until it's perfect. I smooth this part out. So smooth it out with your thumb, it comes up onto the bezel of the screen. Just smooth that out. And then what we'll do is, same as before, we're gonna remove this backing paper behind this skin. And I like to lay it down, let the skin lay down naturally like this. It makes it a little bit easier to apply and align. And so I'll just walk these sides of this screen down like this, making sure they're nice and aligned and straight while smoothing it down. And then remove that. And so here, we're just gonna smooth along that bottom edge of the screen, getting it nice and straight. And then just kind of walk it up onto this curve where you're gonna get all the power holes, the charging station, and the screw holes. Just smoothing it out like that. So from here, we're just gonna do it once over. We're gonna double check, make sure there's no edges sticking up, no air bubbles we need to push out. That looks great. So we're gonna go on to the dock here. So for the dock, we've got a couple pieces here. And we do the same application process before, where we're gonna tear an inch or two to help align it, make sure it's straight before we stick the whole thing on. So I'm gonna start with the front where the Switch logo is and the power light for the dock. So we're gonna take it, I tore a little bit out, And we're gonna align that power light, the edges and the corners, make sure it's not overhanging, and smooth it out. And then same thing as before, we're gonna pull away this backing paper and just pull it out, walk it down. Just pull it out, smooth it out as it goes. And then I take my thumb, I run along the edges to make sure it's nice and stuck. This way it won't peel up unintentionally at any point. That looks great. Then we're gonna go to the back of the dock. We're gonna start with the bottom edge here where you can see the little jut outs for the feet. And we're just gonna same thing, peel an inch, just revealing a little bit of that sticky. We're gonna use the section where the cables come out as a reference here, as well as that bottom edge. So I'm gonna line up where those cables come out, lining up the feet, the bottom edge, making sure it all checks out. Once that looks good, I'm gonna smooth it out, and then same thing, we're gonna walk out this backing paper, slowly sticking down the rest of the skin. With these feet, I like to run my thumb along them just to make them look nice and smooth. Get it all smoothed out, that looks great. So this next part, this covers the top of the dock. And for these are easy enough to put on. I just like to peel them all off, and I just align it with the long edge, and then smooth it out once it's on. Go around the edges, make sure it's nice and stuck, and that looks great, nice and even. Same thing for this other piece. And from here, you see when I'm aligning, I kind of lift it and align just to make sure it's all nice and straight. That's what I was talking about before. You can lift up and reapply at any point. That's what's so nice about this material we use. Sweet, that looks awesome. So now we're gonna do the sides of the dock. I'm gonna start with the side with the USB ports. And what I do here is I will rip along the bottom edge where the power light and the bottom USB port are and use those as my points of reference. So what you can see we'll do down here is we'll align the power light and the USB port, making sure it's nice and even with each other. Smooth that down, and then use this paper just to walk it down, making sure it's nice and straight. This thin section, if you need to, you can kind of realign that one as you go to make sure it's nice and even. Smooth it out nice, and it joins up with that top piece nicely, and they'll fold into each other to get full coverage. Okay, now the other side, we're gonna line the bottom edge here. So again, we're just gonna rip an inch, inch and a half off, not a big deal. And I use the bottom edge as well as the side edges here just to make sure it's aligned. You can see here it's nice and smooth, nice and aligned. So we're gonna go ahead and smooth it out. And then, again, we'll use our thumbs to walk this down, making sure it's nice and straight. So once that's on, we'll smooth it out, make sure it looks all good and straight. And then I'm just gonna do a once over of the dock, make sure there's no jagged edges, anything sticking up that I can smooth down last minute. Looks great. I'm gonna put that on the side here, and we're gonna do the Joy-Cons. For the Joy-Cons, I like to remove them from the system. This way I have them separately here, makes it a little bit easier to put on. So for the top of the Joy-Cons, we're gonna use the buttons and the joystick as a point of reference to make sure it's aligned straight. So I lay it over that joystick, get it over the buttons, and make sure it all lines up. Once it's like that, you just smooth it out. And it's gonna wrap nicely around those. It won't interfere with the buttons, it won't make them harder to press. And then for these edges, I like to use my thumb, I smooth them out. If at this point you're noticing you're getting any wrinkles, you can use a hairdryer to help smooth them out. I haven't ever needed to. It works out really well for me, but if you're having issues with that, the hairdryer will certainly help get out those wrinkles. And you can see it's nice and smooth all around those edges. Make sure it's nice and stuck down. And then we'll do the other Joy-Con, same thing. We're gonna align the buttons with the joystick, making sure it's nice and straight. You can kind of wiggle it around, get it nice and even. And then once you feel like it's nicely placed, you can just go ahead and smooth it out. And same thing with these edges. I just walk them down with my thumb, applying some pressure, making sure they smooth out, get the wrinkles out. That looks great. So for the back of the Joy-Cons, we're gonna start with the edge with the 2 screw holes. And I'm just gonna rip a little bit, exposing some of that. I like to align these 2 screw holes here so you can get those nice and straight, nice and even. And then once those 2 screw holes are in place, you can smooth it down around them. This way it holds it down in place as you pull out this backing paper. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lift the adhesive again, pull out the backing paper, and then use my thumb to smooth the rest down. And again, same thing, use your thumb, some pressure, smooth it out around these edges. It's gonna wrap and fold in nicely to these areas. We're gonna do the same thing with the other side. We're gonna rip, exposing those 2 screw holes on the long edge, and just align them on the bottom of the Joy-Con, making sure they're nice and even. And once they're in place, we'll just smooth down that edge, and then we're gonna pull out the backing paper. And once that backing paper's out, we'll just smooth it down with our thumb, pushing into this nice little corner, and it's gonna smooth out really nicely, covering the other bottom screw hole and wrapping that whole edge. All right, once we're done with those Joy-Cons, we're gonna go ahead and put them on, do one final check over, make sure everything is nice and smooth, there's no pieces sticking up. And now your Fishskyn is installed. If at any point you have any mess ups, issues, shoot us an email with a picture of it. We'll be sure to get you a new one so you can give it another try and get it on perfect. Thanks.